Welcome. Finally, we got on. Finally. Alrighty. How you doing? Finally, it has happened to me. Not really, but I'm getting there. Been working on immigration bureaucracy today. Oh, what fun. Trying to be in multiple places at once. All right, let us get started. We're going to. So welcome. If you are on the mastermind, come over to the Zoom as soon as you can so that I can have a chat with you. And welcome to those on Instagram. Welcome, welcome. We are here to continue to unpack this journey of the rise to the rose, or the drop to the rise to the rose. And we're going a little bit deeper. If you haven't been catching the lives all month, 4 times a week, in fact, you can go back to Rhombus Healing Arts Facebook page or Cynthia Jane Harrison on YouTube. And there are a couple on Instagram, but I'm only just started to do the lives on Instagram. Those of you that are on the Holistic Mystic Mastermind Mentorship, you will have the Zoom link. So come over to Zoom and be ready to lay us down. Hey, Kate. Finally, Kate. All right. We want to see that your Zoom link works. So pop over when you're ready. All right. So I'm Cynthia Harrison, your Holistic Mystic. We cover all aspects of your human evolution, from, Homo sapien to Homo luminous, Homo spiritus. The not only all the mystical aspects, but my background, I'm an anthropologist, I'm a social scientist, I'm a metaphysical minister, I'm all sorts of things, but today I'm here as your holistic mystic. And we are going on with the story of the drop of the feminine, which is both man and woman, and then the rise or the evolution of the human, and these stages of development, which bring us from a relationship of back-to-back unconscious relationship to where we face each other in full awareness of the other, to a place where we're in unity, we're united and stand in supreme equality, so to speak, right? So we're pulling aspects of the ancient texts. At the moment, I'm talking of Queen Esther and Vashti, who were the archetypes of the feminine, the light and the dark. We also have the king, who was Ashvarosh, and he is the mask of Hashem, or God, or the beloved, whatever you want to call it. These are the archetypes and the story. So hang around and see where we go. So I'm just going to carry on because I can't see. Feel free to ask your questions and come on when you're ready. So I'm going to start here. For those of you that don't know the story, we're in March, right? And we're going into Easter for some of you, Purim for others of you. There's all of these different frequencies and sacred times in the world, right? And no matter what culture, religion, way of knowing you are from, you can feel it, you can experience that. So we're talking about this this vision, and it does come from the Old Testament or the Queen Esther story. But let me continue with the mystical understanding, the hidden codes and ways of knowing that are riddled through this story, right? Riddled. So we have the man as the anchor, or the masculine as the anchor. It's not technically man, right? Because man, human, is both masculine and feminine. I'm a human and I'm in a feminine body, right? So keep that, because yesterday we went into these multiple levels and dimensions of the understanding of masculine and feminine. To unpack these stories, we don't need to, but I speak on those multiple levels. So we'll be coming in and out of ways of knowing. And that's just how I see things, see the patterns, see the cross pollination of things. So we have the feminine as this fluid, dynamic energy, and this masculine as this anchor, right? So bear with me. We can say lots of other things, but let's just start there. We have these forces, or these, we could look at them as archetypes, but sometimes they're not just archetypes. Sometimes they're these forces, these energies, these aspects of us. And what we're going into today and tomorrow are these stages, the accounts of the stages where man, let me just let these people in, where man and woman are unified and joined, they're one. So you can look at, we're all talking about, oneness, unification, all of this. For me, when we look at the numerology, not necessarily Western numerology, but the understanding of one, the beloved, or the force greater than myself, is beyond one. So when we talk about coming into oneness, what created oneness, what that oneness is within, is something, again, maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for now, hey, Lisa. I never know who's coming on because your name doesn't come up when I let you in. I trust that, whoever I'm letting in has got the right. Anyway, welcome. Where was I? So these stages. So let's just start touching into the stages, and we'll see where we get to before we head over to the mastermind. There's this first stage where there's unification, the man and woman unified, joined at one. Then we have this, this next stage where they're working on relationship. They have to achieve oneness through their own efforts, and this is achieved by the feminine growth. Right? There's this growth. Just looking at myself on Instagram, it's a bit weird. I'm like a painting or something. Then we go into this next stage where, through the woman's path and inner work, or through that, so we could look at the woman, we could look at man as a species, we could look at the energy of the feminine. There's multiple levels and ways of seeing the same thing. So bear with me. If I trigger you, awesome. Let's talk about it. So this inner work, right? She's arriving at a place where unity is achieved, right? As this total consciousness, total love, total spiritual connection. And when we do this, it's said that there's lots of different words. We could say the Messiah will come, the return of Christ consciousness, all of these different ways of knowing, right? So this is what we're going to touch in today. man and woman were created in his image. So I don't have, where's that from? Anyone know where that's from? Man and woman created in his image. So we could say Genesis, we could say the Old Testament, the Torah. I'm sure it's in other ancient texts and whatnot. So if we're made, right, male and female, together, back to back, unconscious of each other. So there's, I'm not going to give you all the texts and whatnot. I can, but we're more likely to do that in the mastermind. But it's said that at the connection, at that unity, man and woman, masculine, feminine, was one. So they didn't know of each other. They were unconscious. They were back to back, right? So we're going to go into this back to back, front to front, sort of conscious, unconscious way of speaking. Okay. So there's the first account. So you may know it as Adam and Eve, Adam and Hava, but there's a few drops. There's a few different stories around, the first and the second account where there was this uncoupling, so to speak, right? So Adam and Eve, right? The story of Adam and Eve. But then there's the story later on where Hashem, God, the beloved, took a bone and fashioned woman. This is a second account, right? So through the week we talked about, so if you didn't see it, I'll give a little overview, but bear with me because this is like sort of deep and complex, sort of moving through different realms. We have the one, then we have the separation of the one into the two, right? And then they're not conscious of each other, and then there's the turnaround. So it's said that Adam awakes and sees Eve standing in front of him, conscious. He's conscious. He becomes conscious, like the anesthetic wears off, so to speak, and oh, there she is. So keep in mind that, because when I'm talking about Queen Esther and the story of Queen Esther, it actually talks about this in a different language. It's saying the same thing. So we're seeing these stories over and over, and it's like a map for how we can live and understand our conscious evolution, right? The Queen Vashti story is one of the stories they say, or is the story that is said to be the only one that will be carried on after the return of the Messiah or Christ consciousness. Will be the only one practiced. And there's a reason for that. I'm not going to tell you now. I will tell you soon. I have to wait till the end. All right. So you with me so far? You with me so far? So we have the first one being joined back to back. And actually, the word rib in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, actually means side as well, rib and side. So there are commentaries that talk about they were side by side. So they were together as one, like the Adam was the being that, or it's not even a being, there's no, it's really hard to describe, that had everything within it, absolutely everything contained within. And then there was a type of separation, right? This is what we're talking about. But then it goes into, okay, then she is created from the rib or the side of this being, Adam. Right? Bear with me because I'm going somewhere. So the first stage of equality I was going to say is there's a falseness to the first stage of equality. So you look at feminism in our world for a start, or patriarchy and matriarchy, and you know, when women are sort of fighting for their rights, it's a false equality because the women are and you know, say what you will, come at me, I don't mind. Right? The women are fighting like men. And I'm sharing the power of the feminine and how to step into the power of the feminine, whether you're a man or a woman. Stepping into the power of influence, power with rather than power over. And so when we look at the stories of Genesis, for a start, or, you know, we'll just stay there. I'll stop crossing over the languages. We can see that. He created firstly, so it says, later there is a second account where Hashem took one of his bones and fashioned a woman. He created them androgynous with two faces. One side masculine, and on the back side was the feminine. And afterwards they were divided. And this is the moment of separation, or we'll just say it's separation, decoupling, the surgical removal or separation, like the cut from back to back. So we can go deeper into that later. I'm just trying to keep it concise for now. Adam was put to sleep, and then there was the uncoupling of them. In Queen Vashti, it says, their God is asleep. We can get them now. Right? If you go and read the Megillah or Queen Esther story in the Old Testament, it's saying similar things. Okay, this is the story of the rise of the feminine, right? Through Vashti, Queen Vashti, who was killed because she was the ego, she was the dark feminine, and Queen Esther, who is the light feminine, who ends up rising to wear the crown. Now, this isn't about men and women per se. This is about humanity as the bride rising in consciousness to meet the beloved, to be in supreme equality, stand face to face, not unconsciously, but consciously be able to choose. This is what Queen Esther is showing us, how we can choose that. We think we have free choice now. We really don't, if you think about it. Because what many of us are still unconscious. We still have our back to the masculine or the feminine aspect of ourselves, or externally of the other, or of spiritually, right? There's all these levels. Sometimes we turn around for a moment and then we lose consciousness again. So an amnesia comes across us. So this is what these stories can show us. I mean, a lot of the stories show a lot of this. This one is so magnificent in the depth of the mysticism that shows these multiple levels. The Ari says there's 10 stages in this feminine aspect, right? I'm going to share a couple tomorrow. If I'll see where we get today. Tomorrow, you know, I'll just keep sharing. So the first one, joined by the back, and the back is the unconscious, connected via unconscious aspects. They can't achieve unity. When they come face to face, conscious, they consummate the marriage. They consummate their relationship on whatever level. The masculine and feminine within yourself, becoming complete within yourself so that you can then meet the other, those outside of you, without wanting or needing or grasping for them to fulfill you, to fill the hole of your trauma or your attachment issues, your pain and suffering and whatnot, right? And for that free choice to be able to say, I choose that path, right? And a few things in between. So the first stage of equality is false. And it's only via the separation that we have that chance or that ability to be face to face and choose. We're choosing what we understand, what our beliefs and conditioning has provided knowledge of. That is unconscious. So if you only know, let me give an example. If I say you can choose, but you only get to choose from what's in here, that's all you get to choose from. You don't know that there's another thing over here that you could choose from, right? Choose a color and you only think that there's, 5 colors or 7 colors. So in the rainbow of 7, each color of the rainbow has another 7, and each one of those has another 7 and another 7 and another 7, and it's infinite. And we start to look at frequency, vibration, color, sound, energy. So that's what I mean by we believe we have free choice, because from what we know, we get to choose. But you don't know what you don't know, so how can you choose? Does that make sense? So I'm saying that these stories show us how the beloved came in. The light, let's just say I'm just going to call it the light for now. That point of light, like the picture behind me on Instagram, you can't really see it, but there's a picture behind me of that point of light, and it's radiating out into the world. Well, there's what's behind that light, what created that light, the no-thingness, Ein Sof. That's what I call the beloved, the creator of everything, even light. Right? And then we have this ratcheting down of the eminences of light, the point of light and the eminence of light, how they come into the world, and how that also shows us how to come back to our love, the beloved, right? Whether that's the drop of the feminine energetically in your body, your physical body, and you're connecting back to your wholeness within yourself, or that within a partner, if you're in a partnership, a marriage, how you navigate that, how as people, as humans on this planet, we are, like I said yesterday, like the brides. We're all the brides in a way. Like we are the the aspect of the beloved that has dropped. Whether you're masculine, whether you're man or woman or whatever you identify as a human in our species, we're on this journey together. It's fun. Kate says it's fun. It's not always fun, but hey, let's just leave that. Right. So just trying to see it in these multiple levels. If you get confused, that's okay. It's okay. Just go back and listen to the whole series. Like, we've been gone for a while. But I try and make each one, you get pieces, even if you haven't listened to the past ones, okay? So we get to make this choice, this union of masculine and feminine. The false union, the decoupling, which brings diminishment. So yesterday I was talking about the sun and the moon a little bit. I think it was yesterday, the sun and the moon, right? And how the moon is reflecting from the sun. And the moon waxes and wanes and has all these stages. Sometimes you can see her, sometimes you can't, right? The diminishment, that's a representation of what we're talking about, the diminishment. But there's a reason for that. So we are receiving, if we're open to and receptacles for that spiritual light, that nurturance, right? The resources that help us grow and move to our full sovereignship, right? Or sovereignty. We become the crown. We're not just crowned, we become the crown. The crown that sits on the head, higher than the high. This is the journey. And maybe some can't comprehend that. And that's what we would call the fear of love, the fear of your magnificence, the fear of your potential as a human, right? That journey. And so when you start to see or feel or sense or know this light, this love, it's pushed away, right? Because there's a fear that comes up. So these stories are all to help us in accepting our greatness, not with ego, like Queen Vashti. She came in like, rah, 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 I can do everything you can do, and I'm gonna be the queen with you, and blah, blah, blah. And she was beheaded. The ego was killed. They brought her head on a plate. Right? She seemed to be the strong one. She seemed to be the one that was going to get somewhere. And Queen Esther, well, she wasn't queen at that time, Esther was beautiful. She didn't speak much. She influenced with her grace, with the light that she held at that time. She was raised in a particular way. And I'll get to that in a minute. There's some real core meanings in the story that I don't think you would have seen. And if you have, awesome. Like, let me know if you've seen it. If you've even read the story, you may not have read the story. So there's this decoupling that brings this diminishment, right? And there is a spiritual resource or a fund that is nurturing her, like the sun is nurturing, giving her the light to reflect. Why? Because she's in the dark. So she is the one, right? The moon, she is reflecting, bringing light to the dark. She brings light to the dark, reflected from the sun, reflected from the masculine. reflected from above. Don't see it as, this is the thing, ego's going to jump in. And I'm going to just say, if your ego's jumping in to say, oh, what woman dropped, man didn't, check, because they check yourselves, right? This is, you're missing the point. If you miss the point, you'll never have that true choice because you're stuck in ego. You'll be beheaded like Queen Esther, right? Or Hanuman, or Haman. I always get them mixed up. Hanuman is the good monkey, you know, what's his name? Ram Dass talks about Hanuman and the heart and all that. No, Haman is the dark masculine who was trying to wipe out women, feminine, and all the Jewish people at that time. He ended up getting hung by the noose or the pillar that he was he had developed, he had built for Esther's uncle. Anyway, that's part of the story. We can see the two darks. Because of their antics, they ended up getting wiped out. So how do we navigate that? This story shows us. So the decoupling brings the diminishment. After we connect with people, so anyone who's been in a relationship, new relationship, there is a diminishment. Meaning there becomes sometimes we call it the honeymoon period of being over, right? Where the egos start to come up, stuff starts to come up. And there's a period of disruption in the relationship. It's normal. It's pretty damn normal. Right? Because we're going through this stage of development, spiritual development in our personal relationships and in ourselves on every level. This is why I love this story, because it shows, well, it has the codings within it. And so I'm helping sort of, I guess, decouple that, right? So after the couple have been together, there's this diminishment within the relationship. And that happened to me. That happened to me the last few years, right? Could say because I moved country and all the rest of it, but it was also that finding your footing in a relationship and how to navigate being from that to that. There's navigating that and allowing the process of that diminishment. So two individuals coming together, you know, there's a shift, there's a change. But in that, there's that climb or that path or that journey to find who you are within that relationship. So when you get that strong footing, things change again. So we have this diminishment, you know, that's the drop, right? I mean, I could go into Adam and Eve because it's there's text that says in biblical Hebrew. So this is why I love the unveiling of certain understandings of these ancient texts, because it says that Adam kicked Eve out of the garden, right? And it was God that then kicked Adam out because of what he did to her, right? So I'm not making that up. That's what it says. And there's a whole commentary on that. I'm not going into that today, but very interesting, because we look at the first female They're called Lily or Lilith, but they don't like, we just say Lily, right? And it sort of fits with that story because she was wanting to stand face to face. She didn't want to lay down for Adam. Sounds like Vashti, right? Sounds like Queen Vashti. It's this strong feminine, the dark feminine. Because if you Google Lilith, she's seen as this monster, child-eating being. She's demonized, right? So I'm just going to leave that to the side for now. We'll talk about that another day, right? So this is our time. This is our time to stand face to face, conscious, and receive our spiritual gifts. We talked about being receptive, giving and receiving the last few days. We talked about that and how we're taught to give. Most of us are happy to give. We want to give. Most people. What I see is there's a problem in receiving. The ego comes up and it's like, well, what do they want in return? Or like people aren't just purely generous. So when we're receiving, and so that's what I was asking last few days, is look at how you are at receiving, whether you get uncomfortable. Oh, my life's frozen. Oh, well. Whether you get uncomfortable with being showered with gifts, or whether it's your birthday and you're the focus of attention and people are giving you things and singing and having celebrations, whether you're uncomfortable or whether you're like, yeah, right. And people are giving to you just because. If that makes you uncomfortable, it's something to look at. How you receive. Whether you're a man or a woman. As a man, how you receive, because your feminine aspects, need to come together as well. And as a woman, how you receive the masculine within you or externally, if we're talking about, men and women. But you can put it to anything, really. So we're standing face to face, consciously receiving our spiritual gifts and taking our place to connect and be with the beloved, or Hashem, as Esther did, as Queen Esther did. So on one level, she's coming and she's connecting to the king, the human king. Hashverosh was his name in the story. But his other face was actually God. So she was meeting the human on one level and saying, I've come to ask you to change the decree to kill all these people. He says, I cannot change the decree, but I can make another one that would give you your people the opportunity to fight back. And they did fight back. And it wasn't so good for the people that were out to kill them, right? As the story goes. On a next level, she entered the kingdom. So we talked about Malchut, which is the royal kingdom, the lower aspect of, just for those of you that didn't see it. So we've got the masculine, feminine, and the feminine drop. So this is called Malchut. Now she, which is what Esther's playing, comes up to address the king, the crown. Okay. So she's doing that on a human level with the king, but she's doing it on a spiritual level for everybody. for all people, right? And it says that she could be killed just by approaching the king, right? So on both levels. But she wasn't. And she was received. She was received by the king and by Hashem, or God, those spiritual level, human level. And she was crowned. She became the queen. Not only did she become the queen, there's a flip in what you see as lowest and highest. And that lower aspect, the humans, come up and actually become the crown. So there's supreme equality, and then there's humans. So there's passages, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up a little. There's passages that say that Hashem, the beloved, was kissed by the mother, kissed on the head by the mother. What? How can God, Hashem, the beloved, have a mother? What do you think? It's really interesting. I'm glad to see you thinking. Yeah. So there's these three levels, okay, and it actually says it in the story. So when you read, you don't have to be a religion. I'm a mystic, but going and reading these stories to get the wisdom from them and the guidance, right? That there are these levels. So a microcosm, the masculine and feminine, all the men and women, and also on a global scale of how we are in the world, there's all these levels. And I think I'll go into that next bit tomorrow. But do you remember the uncle, Mordecai? So Esther's uncle, Mordecai. So her mum and dad died. Her mum died at childbirth. The dad died, I can't recall now, but early, maybe even before she was born, I believe, from memory. So the uncle, Mordecai, raised Esther. And so I go back and look at some of the stories in the Facebook Lives if you're interested, because I talk about the story and how that all happened. But he also, so she was his daughter. Then she became his wife. So he was her uncle, then she was the daughter, and then she was the wife. On these levels of, so don't think of it like a normal story, because he also breastfed her. There's mystical stuff in here, people. It's not like your uncle down the street or whatever, right? There's these levels. So it says around this passage where Hashem says the mother kissed his head, right? Or how is that so? Because on these planes of existence, down here we have the daughter. Can you see? Oh, you can't see what I'm drawing. There you go. Hang on. Some of you can, but on the Zoom you can't see what I'm drawing. You didn't tell me. All right. It's got the light there. So we have the daughter, right? So this level, daughter, And then rising up, there's these other levels, right? We'll go into these more tomorrow. Standing face to face, so like wife. And then above the crown would be mother, right? There's, you know, so we talk about supreme consciousness, supreme equality, and then that complete flip, So the king is always Hashem, and he had a daughter, and he loved her so much, and he's talking about Malchut down here. Well, there you go, down here. We've been talking about it all week and last week as well, right? Daughter loved her so much, she dropped all the way down. He didn't stop loving the daughter, and he called her my daughter, right? And he doesn't stop loving her until he calls her my sister. There you go, sister. We'll just put her there. Oh, you can't see. Anyway, I've written it up there. Right? My sister. Come to my garden, my sister, my bride. He's inviting his bride to come into the garden and frolic with him. He doesn't stop loving her until he calls her mother. So we go from daughter, my sister, my bride, from above to below, the parallel to above. The one that was above becomes the one below, and then up to the mother. This is what we're talking about, energetically, spiritually. So if you haven't been following all month, that may make absolutely no sense to you at all. So ask questions or go back and have a look at it, or come tomorrow. What time am I on tomorrow? To 9 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, which 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that 12 Pacific? 12 Pacific. And what's that Eastern? 2? 3. 3 Pacific? There's 3 Eastern. Anyway, you can look it up. Go by Hawaiian Standard Time because that's where I'm at the moment. I'll leave it at that for now, but we'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it a bit more, and if you've got questions, ask them, but feel free to go back. If you want the full story, because we're going over to the mastermind now, which is the paid aspect of it, it's $30 a month or $30 for the month, but it's ongoing if you want to stay with us. But all of the full recordings are in the mastermind mentoring portal that you can access. The link should be there in my profile or under the live somewhere. If not, send me a message. You can access it for 2 days just to have a look and see what's there. And if you want to continue, you'll just be billed $30 after 2 days. If you don't want to continue, just what do you call it? Unsubscribe, just jump off, and all is well and good. And you can feel free to join us on the live portions, the free live portions, but you will not have access to all the replays on the live. So I'm going to skip over because we've got a few people. So those of you that are watching on the social media that are in the mastermind, come over on the Zoom link now because we're going to go a little deeper. So if you joined us for the first time, welcome. Good to have you here. If you're a little confused, that's awesome because we're just unpacking some really mystical awesomeness that can help us with our everyday life, the practical mysticism. When we unpack it, we can look at it and see how we are being and doing and inter-ing that into our life, right? Into our relationships, into how we are, how that impacts our health and wellness. Okay, so until tomorrow, much love. May the blessings be. Ciao. All righty. So let me just turn off some things and we'll go a little deeper and see what's coming up for you and answer your question.